As I said to Susie, she told me that Simon Horobin had just been talking here in Chippy about a book called Does Spelling Matter? And Simon, we have to treat with a certain amount of respect as Professor of English Language and Literature at Oxford University. Welcome, Simon. I was always told when I was a school teacher, just get the kids to express themselves, the spelling doesn't matter.
Yeah, well, unfortunately it does. And kids today do struggle with spelling for all sorts of reasons, but ultimately when you come to write exams and come to apply for jobs later in life, people are going to judge you if you haven't spelt things correctly. So to that extent, spelling does matter.
But I was always told that Shakespeare didn't even know how to spell. He didn't even know how to spell his own name, that there was inconsistency in his writing.
Yeah, well, one of the things I look at in the book is the history of spelling, which shows that part of the reason for that is that in the past there wasn't a fixed standard spelling system. So the idea of correct spelling is actually a relatively recent phenomenon. And so for Shakespeare there wasn't just one way of spelling any particular word, including his own name. And so he was much freer to spell as he pleased. Unfortunately, that same license doesn't apply to us today. And so we're stuck with having to spell things as everyone else does.
But now we've got spell check. I was going to say, does it matter? Because if you type it wrongly on your computer, a little line comes out.
Yeah, that's true, and that's certainly, I think, helping people who are poor spellers. But at the same time, the alternative it suggests, it's only going to notice it's a wrong spelling of a word if it recognises that what word you're attempting to spell. So if your spelling's really bad, then it might not know what you're trying to do. And also, of course, if you spell something like another word, it won't notice it. So it may be that you've stumbled upon the correct spelling of a completely different word, and therefore the spell checker will just let it go. So it's slightly dangerous to rely entirely on spell checkers, and of course with that comes different conventions of spelling too. So American spelling can quite often come into play as well.
Yes, I mean, if spelling does matter, how do we reconcile the fact that Caribbean English is different from the English they speak in Florida, which is different from the English they speak in Carlisle, which is different from the English they speak in Chipping Norton?
Yeah.
What then do you think there is a right way and a wrong way?
There's only a right way in the sense that it's the spelling that has been determined and is now encoded in our dictionaries. And it's certainly true that as a reflection of pronunciation, it's not a terribly good one. And of course, it can only reflect one particular pronunciation, so that for all the different varieties of English we have today are all trying to learn the same spelling system. And therefore, it's a mismatch for very many different people. And of course, that may mean that in the future, as more and more people come to learn English and to spell things more phonetically using their own particular accents, that spelling may change. Something we're seeing on the internet all the time, of course.
But spelling, for instance, I just wonder if the spelling of a word, the correct spelling, tells you something about its derivation and its history. If I was to say, last night I woke up and I saw a G-O-A-S-T, if I saw a ghost, that would be the one way of spelling it. But we've got this ridiculous thing, it's a G-H-O-S-T. So does that tell us something about the derivation of that particular noun?
It does, yeah. I mean, that's one of the arguments that I make in the book for keeping it the way it is. It's not a terribly good guide to pronunciation, but it's a good guide to etymology, which of course links to meaning and also to history. So it preserves something of the richness of the language, where the words have come from. I mean, taking a word like ghost, the H there isn't terribly helpful because it's not etymological, because in Old English there was no H there, and in fact that's a spelling change that's come in with printing in the 16th century, because printers were Dutch. They'd learnt their trade in Holland and they used the Dutch spelling of the word ghost, which had an H in it, and we've just been stuck with it ever since. So it's a nice example of where something isn't phonetic. It does tell you something about the history, and it preserves part of that richness.
How good is your spelling?
It's pretty good, I think. I wouldn't want to be tested on it, but...
No, I'm not going to test you, but what I'm going to do is thank you for coming and talking to me. Does Spelling Matter? Is by Simon Horobin. Thanks very much indeed, Simon.
Thank you.